Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar on self-love and self-care with Uprise, EAP. My name's Nigel Polak. Yeah. Good idea. Say good day in the chat. Today we are going to be talking about the relationship between self-love and self-care, and there's a real starting point around what does it mean? And what does it even mean to love oneself and to take self-care? And right up front, I'm in Australia. We have a strong culture in Australia against selfishness. Selfishness, and to be called selfish is one of the nastiest things that you can be called. And so that cultural cringe gets in the way of us being actually able to take care of ourselves, because when we practice self-care and self-love, we can be criticized. The other form of criticism that's really starting to creep into our culture is the criticism of being a narcissist. So, heaven forbid that anyone would ever dare to call you or me a selfish narcissist. They've become the mean things to say about people, and so we culturally cringe away from them. And yet, what a narcissist does really well, to a certain extent, is self-love. They put themselves first. They do things for themselves. When we are being called selfish, it's often because we're doing things that are taking care of ourselves. And so this webinar talks to those issues that we all face, and I'm really interested in hearing from you through the chat what you're interested in this topic, what it is about this topic that has brought you here, what's got you interested. And as we go along, just feel free to just drop any thoughts or feelings that you're having into the chat, and I won't name you so that it doesn't come through in the recording. But I'll reference what you talk about, and I'll talk to what you're talking about, so you can feel like I'm talking to you. I'd like to acknowledge the Gumbangere peoples upon whose country I am currently sitting. They are the traditional custodians of these lands, and these lands were never ceded. This country was never ceded by them to the people who have come more lately. I pay my respects in a genuine and authentic way to the elders, past, present, and emerging, for their ongoing custodianship and care of this land, and pay a debt of gratitude for having protected and cared for this land for so many millennia, and continuing to do so, and continuing to do their best to help all of us to take care of this land. And a warm welcome to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are here with us here today. Someone's written, I usually put other people's needs above myself, even if it's damaging to my own needs. That's why I'm here. Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that's what I feel like I'm talking to. I feel like I'm talking to exactly that, and you'll see that in my slides. So I'm Nigel, psychological coach with Uprise. I'm a trained and practicing psychotherapist and counsellor, and I'm a teacher, trainer, and supervisor of psychotherapists and counsellors. That's my credentials that give me the right to speak here today. And I do a lot of work in relationship counselling and couples therapy, where these issues of need and self-care, and the importance of self-care, and accusations of being a narcissist or a selfish person are very, very frequent. So this is the starting point, and I think that this is why most of you are here. Burnout is what happens when you try to avoid being human for too long. And I'm going to talk a lot about the way in which we have taught ourselves, or been taught by others, to pretend that we don't have needs, to convince ourselves that we're not important, that other people are more important than we are, and that it's up to us to sacrifice ourselves for the benefit of other people. We talk about burnout in counselling, in social work, in youth work, in various settings where people devote their lives to caring for and working for other people. And it's a warning. It's a warning that's given, you know, in through the academic institutions, that by coming into a caring profession, you're putting your hand up and saying, I care about other people. And sometimes you're putting your hand up to say, I care about other people more than I care about myself. Other people have greater need than I do. And so I will devote myself. I will self-sacrifice. I'll sacrifice my well-being and my needs so that I can help other people. I remember having a client who came to me after many years working in a youth service, and as in all those services, there was an attrition of staff. There's an endless need. If anyone's ever worked in disabilities or youth work or with children and families in need of assistance with addiction, almost any of these spaces, it's a bottomless pit. You can just keep throwing money and energy and money and energy and money and energy, and the problem just won't be solved. It's too big. It's bigger than any individual one of us, and you know, these issues are proving to be bigger than all of us. But what happens is that when you're a caring, kind, generous person, you devote yourself to the people who are more in need than yourself. But it doesn't just happen to social workers and youth workers and counsellors. It happens to mothers and fathers and team members in ordinary organisations who feel a responsibility to make sure that everybody else is okay and that they're not as important, that they don't need to be taken care of as much. Maybe they feel like, you know, they've had a good life, they've got things easy, and so maybe they feel like they should, you know, devote themselves to other people. So any of us can do it. And this is the first lesson, and I teach this and I repeat myself till I'm blue in the face in all the trainings that I do with counsellors and psychologists and youth workers and social workers. In order to be helpful to other people, we need to take care of ourselves first. So I can use myself as an example. I do this work, the work of talking to people, of listening to their pain, of helping them sort through their pain, very often in circumstances where nothing can be done. It just is. Mum's got dementia. She's dying. This is a story I heard yesterday. Mum's got dementia. She's slowly dying. It's painful. She's gone. But meanwhile, she's beating the absolute hell out of Dad. And it's sad. It hurts to watch. It hurts to watch them do it. What can I do? I can't do anything about that. What can the person I'm talking to do? They can't do anything. But there's this pain, this anguish, this hurt that has nowhere to go. So part of my profession, part of my role is to go, you just lay it on me, bring it on. Yep. As much, yeah. How much pain have you got? Yeah. Suicide, addiction. Yeah. Child abuse. Yeah. In environmental terror. And the last person I spoke to just now, terror of death, broken relationships, not feeling loved. Yep. I'll take all that on board. Well, okay. Well, what do I do with that? Now I've got all that. Well, what I do is I take care of myself first. My whole life is set up around making sure that I'm taken care of, because I learned this lesson a long time ago now, that if I want to take care of other people and I want to be good at taking other people, and I do like taking care of other people, and I do like being good at it, then I need to be really good at taking care of myself first. I need to be really good at taking care of myself first. And that kind of leads me into I'm not really focusing on self-love, but self-care and self-love work together, because some of you are going to be thinking to yourself, well, I don't know that I'm worth taking care of. You know, what does taking care of mean? I've got to go to the beach. I've got to swim. I've got to cycle. I've got to spend time with friends. I've got to have fun. I've got to have downtime. I've got to sit in the sun. I've got to be able to read a book and do what I want to do. I've got to play with my puppies. I've got to be able to spend time with my partner. I've got to be able to spend time with each of my children. I've got to be able to spend time meditating, doing yoga. You know, all of these things, all of which feeds me. I need to go away for weekends on my own or with my mates, doing spiritual things to feed myself. so that I can come back and give it. Because if I don't, I'll be depleted. I often use the metaphor of the glass or the cup. And if I'm, I've got a cup. Oh, I've got a glass here. But if I'm pouring my glass out all the time, giving, well, then I've got not much left. I've got to fill it up. And so the metaphor, I've got a jug here. I wish I had a jug, but I've got a dirty water bottle. So it's a warning. It's a dirty looking water bottle. So I've got my water bottle. So if I'm going to be pouring out, I need to be pouring in. Yeah, the self-care is the water bottle, and the caring for other people is the glass. I need to be pouring in at a greater rate than I'm pouring out. And if I'm pouring out at a pretty rapid rate, which a lot of you are, and which I often am, then I need to be pouring in at a rapid rate as well. Some of you are going to be going, yeah, but I don't matter that much. I need to, self-care, self-love. I kind of feel like I don't love myself enough to care for myself enough. Such a great way of thinking about it. Because when we love someone, we want to care about them. We want to take care of them. But if we don't love ourselves, it's hard. It's hard. It's almost like we have to work really hard to take care of ourselves. But it's a feedback loop. If I practice self-care, I learn to love myself more. The more I care for myself, the more I love myself. The more I love myself, the more I care for myself. The more I care for myself, the more I love myself. It's a cycle. I should have had that in some kind of infographic. All right. Self-care is about putting your needs first. So let's think about doing that. How do you do that? We've got physical, emotional, social, spiritual. I've actually got another slide further down, which I'll how do I move? Can't use my arrows. I'm going to come back because this other slide's got like even more. It's the self-care wheel. So it's a professional self-care wheel. And you can see I've got self-love there, self-love, self-care. They go together. And this one's got physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, personal, professional, getting balance in life. So there's so much more in it. We're going to start by looking at these four: physical, emotional, social, spiritual. And you can read those as we go along. And I'm going to ask you to, so people have just put something in the chat. People have said they 100% agreed, really agree, well done, congrats. I often wonder who takes care of the carers. Someone says, this is so timely. As a mother, I sometimes feel guilty when I put myself first before my child. I had that conversation today with a client in the US, actually. And she's got 3 little kids, and she's going, I can't. I tried. She said, I tried to go to the gym. I tried to go and do some yoga. I tried to do some journaling, but I couldn't because I felt so guilty that I should. And whenever you hear the word should, your alarm bells ring, should, because that comes from somewhere else. I should be doing the washing. I should be taking them to school. I should be spending time with them. So we have we have guilt that drives us away from doing what actually is good for us. And we it's easier in the moment. Like, we're not very good at sort of pushing things away, but in the moment, it feels like, well, if I'm doing this for me, then I'm depriving my child of that. Well, hang on. But if I don't do this for me, how much am I going to deprive my child of in the long term? Because what kind of me are they getting? If I'm not loving myself, if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not filling my cup, if I'm not constantly filling my cup, then what are they getting? I'll show you what they're getting. This is what your kids are getting. That's what they're getting. They're getting the dregs. They're getting the last of you, because you're constantly running on empty. You're constantly fatigued. You're constantly depleted. So what do you do that leaves you feeling good? And not just what you do, because think about this woman that I spoke to. She talked about all the things that she used to do as a mother. No, before she was a mother. She used to write, she used to journal, she used to meditate. She actually trained as a counselor. All these things that she did because she wanted to, because she liked to. So what do you do? What feels good when you do it? Someone says, this becomes more important now than ever before. A lot of people work from home now. Yeah. What's a good antidote to guilt? Someone asked. What's a good antidote? I'll see if I can see if something percolates to the surface about what's a good antidote to guilt. So what do you do that leaves you feeling good? All right. Can you do more of it? Or if it's something that you did in the past left you feeling good, what can you do? Yeah, if you have some thoughts, drop them in the chat, because it'd be good to sort of read out the things that people are talking about. All right, arrows don't work. The other thing is to look at other people. What do you know that other people do that leaves them feeling good? And that sort of starts to open other doors. And then we can look on the left-hand side where people sleep, they stretch, they walk, they do physical exercise, they eat healthy food, they do yoga, they meditate, they have rest, they practice stress management, they try and grow up emotionally, they practice forgiveness and compassion, kindness to themselves, self-compassion, self-kindness. They've got clear boundaries. They use their support systems. They engage in positive media and social media. One of my top tips for anyone struggling with anxiety or depression or stress in their lives: turn off the TV. Stop watching the news. If you want to de-stress your life, stop constantly bombarding your brain with perceived threats of danger and terror and all the bad things that are happening or might happen. It's like you're getting a narrow pipe and you're jamming all the worst stuff through it, and then you're shoveling it into your brain. That's not good self-care. Spiritual time alone, meditation, yoga, connection, nature's huge. Oh my gosh, when was the last time you sat down on the grass or lay under a tree or walked on the beach or swam in the ocean or jumped in a river or paddled in a stream? All of that is magic for nourishing your soul and your spirit and your physical body and yourself, your mind. Journaling, making a sacred space for yourself. Time in nature is my medicine. It calms my nervous system. Yeah, it calms all of our nervous systems. This website for good news, The Optimist Daily, were enrolled in a 4-week mindfulness meditation course. Yay! Music, yes. Yeah, especially in the height of the pandemic, I stopped watching the news because it made me feel more anxious. It did. Pay attention to your feelings. So what do you know that other people do that leaves them feeling good? Maybe you could try some of that. I jumped on a road bike a bunch of years ago now, but I hadn't ridden for decades. And I had a friend that was doing it, and I thought, oh, well, he's going, I'll borrow a bike. I borrowed a bike, and then I bought a $150 secondhand bike, and then I bought a $600 bike, and years later I'm now riding one of the super expensive bikes because I'm on it all the time, and I love the feeling of it. I love the experience of it. It changes my entire metabolism when I just get out there and I sweat and the wind's in my face and the sun's on my skin. It's a wonderful feeling. So what gives you that wonderful feeling? Tuning in from the back lawn right now. Lovely. Okay, so there's more detail in this slide. I won't go into it too much. I want to get into some of this stuff around boundaries. So much of what occurs because we don't have limits. We allow people to demand more of us than we should be giving. And I use that word "should" here carefully because I'm referring to it not being healthy for us, it not being good for us, to allow other expectations of us to supersede our own expectations of ourselves. Boundaries are expectations. So that's the first, when you hear people talk about boundaries, sometimes I always want to put this inflection: boundaries. Yes, you need to have good boundaries. That's my my therapist voice. But what are they? They're expectations. The expectations that we have of ourselves, we have of other people. Thing about boundaries with people, you only ever become aware of your boundary after it's been either threatened or crossed. So someone will say, oh, could you, I'm having, actually what happens is, who's going to do this? This really needs to be done. If our team doesn't do it, if our family doesn't do it, if we don't do it, something really bad's going to happen. Someone's got to do it. Someone's going to do it. Who's going to do it? And you go, oh, I'll do it. Or someone says, oh, could you do it? And you go, okay, yep. And then afterwards you go, why'd I put my hand up? I don't want to do that. I don't have time for that. Damn, I've committed myself now. I'm gonna have to make time. And then we're burning out, slowly burning out. Other people, on the other hand, they only know about our boundaries, usually, after they've crossed them and you've let them know about it. So not only does another person have to cross my boundaries, But I have to then say, hey, excuse me, you crossed my boundary. Someone says, oh, could you do it, Nigel? Could you, I would need this thing done. Can you do it? No, sorry. I haven't got any capacity for that right now. There's my boundary. You're expecting me to do the thing. I'm expecting to not do the thing. Someone else can do it. But what if it doesn't get done? Oh, panic, panic, panic. What if the kids' socks don't? I had this conversation this morning. What if the kids' socks don't get washed? What if the kids wear dirty socks to school? What kind of mother will I be then? You'll be the kind of mother that has kids that wear dirty socks to school. That's the kind of mother you'll be. So unless you clarify them first. So this next bit is around clarifying boundaries, clarifying expectations, doing it at home, at work, with your friends, with your family. And understanding your boundaries comes down to two things. One, your context. What's the situation? And it's usually pretty simple. I'm here doing a webinar. You're here listening to a webinar. We've got a role. My role is to present. Your role is to listen or participate. What about at home? So you've got a home context. What about your family? Well, you've got your broader family system context, including mum and dad and maybe grandpa, granny and grandpa and on two sides and some cousins. That's the family context. And then you've got your work context. Okay, so there's the office that you work in, there's the physical building, or there's the technology that you use, and there's the people that you engage with. So that's your context. And then you ask yourself, what's my role in relation to the other people in the context? Well, here at home, I'm a father and I'm a partner. In the bigger context of my family, I'm also a son and a brother and a cousin. When I'm working, I'm a therapist. So that's my role. My role is to be the therapist. Sometimes my role is to be the client or to be the supervisee. So I take on a different role, which means that when I take on a different role, my expectations of myself and others within that role are different. So what's my expectations of myself as a father? What are my expectations of myself as a partner? What are my expectations of myself as a therapist? What are my expectations of myself as the son of elderly parents? Those are my boundaries. Those are my boundaries. My expectations of myself are my boundaries. And the only person who's going to assert those boundaries and say, no, this is what I expect of me, I don't expect that of me, is me. Other people will come along all the time and go, oh, can we expect this from you? And can we expect that from you? And oh, wouldn't mind getting a bit of this from you and wouldn't mind getting a bit of that from you. Money would be good. Expect you to give me some money for doing a really bad job with fixing the whatever it was. Well, no, my expectation is that I don't pay people for doing really bad jobs, so you're not going to get that money, for example. Sometimes they do, I've got to confess. The goal in our relationships is to have clear and consistent boundaries. Now, this is parenting 101. Clear, consistent boundaries. I had this conversation this morning as well, actually, now that I think about it, with a couple. Clear, consistent boundaries. They've got a child, and that child's 5, and that child won't sleep in her own bed. And so mum and dad go, come on, let's go sleep in your own bed. And the child goes, no, I don't want to. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a little baby sister who's going to be waking up. And so the parents go, okay, then just come and sleep in our bed because it's easier for all of us. Now the parents are saying, how do we get her out of our bed? How do we get her out of our bed? Well, you haven't had clear, consistent boundaries. And if you want your child to get back into her bed, then you need clear, consistent boundaries. Tonight, you are going to sleep in your own bed. When you come to us or when you call out for us, we're going to put you back to bed in your own bed. And then it happens, and then there's a big tantrum at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we still say, you are going into your own bed, you're going to sleep in your own bed, you are safe, it's going to be fine. Happy to sit with you for a little while you fall asleep. I'm going to go now. You try and go to sleep. If you can't go to sleep, I'll come back. Clear, consistent boundaries. People, especially kids, feel safe, comfortable, trusting when they know what to expect from you in response to their behaviors. So be clear and consistent, and people will feel safe. People will feel trusting. You don't have to give people what they want, especially kids, especially bosses, especially your colleagues. You don't have to give them what they want just because they want it. You just need to be clear and consistent about your expectations of yourself within the role that you're in, within that space. And then you can negotiate that. You can negotiate that expectations. If they If they have a different set of expectations, like, oh, okay, boss, okay, wife, okay, husband, okay, children, let's have a conversation because these were my expectations. This is what I expected from myself. This is what I expected from you. And this is what I thought you expected from me. Is there something that we need to change here? Tell me about that. A good way of having these conversations when we're feeling that our boundaries aren't being respected, which usually means that other people have different expectations of us than we have of ourselves. This is kind of the formula. And some of you would have heard this before. Yeah, someone's saying in the chat, learn to say no. Yes, say no. No is a wonderful thing to say. So as the other great thing that I like saying is, I don't know. What should I do? I don't know. I just don't know. Maintaining your boundaries with mutual respect. And so the formula is observation first. So when you asked me to do that task, I feel firstly responsible, like I should say yes, but I also feel that I don't want to because I know that I don't have the capacity and I'll become overwhelmed. I would be grateful if you could find someone else to do it. When you come into my space, I feel overwhelmed and threatened, and I would be grateful if you would respect my space. It's kind of a nice way of saying no. What do I got here? Oh, I thought I had a bunch of slides. I've got a little bit of time to talk about the EAP because I wanted to talk about Uprise and what we do, because a big part of self-care is being willing and able to reach out for help. We humans are mammals, and mammals are social creatures. We are not designed to be out on our own, out by ourselves alone. I'm not sure if any of you caught the program on SBS called Alone. Those guys and girls, they could survive in the wilderness, but every single one of them, not all of them could survive, but the ones that could survive, they could survive, and some of them could survive indefinitely. But they could not be alone. We need other people. We need help. And an easy way of accessing help is through an EAP, prepaid by your employer, set number of sessions. You can have either coaching or therapy. Coaching tends to be sort of problem solving, not surface level issues, but things that are bothering you, that you want some tools, or you want some strategies that you just want to deal with. You can do some coaching. You can also do therapy, where therapy says, oh, therapy realizes that, well, there's something deeper underlying this. This has been something emotionally you've been struggling with for a long time. Let's have a look at what that is. Let's have a look at what's going on beneath the surface and see if we can change the way you feel, the way you think, the way you act, so that you start to feel better about yourself. And if you're talking to me, for example, then, and we're talking about relationship issues, then we'll talk about boundaries. We'll talk about it quite explicitly, and we'll work through what's the context. I did this coaching call the other day with our Uprise client. What's the context? What's your role in the context? What's your expectations of yourself? Actually, we did it in her intimate relationship. What do you expect of yourself? What don't you expect? And actually, we rephrased it specifically for her around, what are you responsible for? What aren't you responsible for? And she just found it so illuminating, and it enabled us to look at her early history, her experience with her parents growing up, where she felt that if she didn't take responsibility for what was happening in her chaotic family household, nobody would. So she kind of developed this overdeveloped sense of responsibility, where it's up to her to keep everybody safe, and it's up to her to make sure that everybody's happy. And it almost came as like a surprise or a revelation to her when I said, well, that robs them of the opportunity to take responsibility for their own happiness, right? And I said to her, who's responsible for your happiness? She's like, well, I am. Well, then who's responsible for your partner's happiness? I am. No, she's not. She's not responsible for her partner's happiness. She's responsible for her happiness. And I said, what about your child? I think she's got a 5-year-old. Who's responsible for her happiness? She's like, me? I'm responsible? I'm not sure that you are responsible for her happiness. You're responsible for keeping her safe. You're responsible for making sure that she sort of gets through life to a point where she can make her own decisions. But I don't think that you're responsible for making her happy. I don't think that anyone can do that. And what happens when you feel responsible for making a child happy, and the child gets upset, because they all do. They're all sad about all sorts of stuff all the time. And if we feel that it's our job to make them happy, then we're going to have a really hard time. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Please do make use of the EAP. I hope you enjoyed our session today. I hope you got value out of it. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.